Capcom is hinting at the future of what may be their single biggest release. The title updates for Monster Hunter Wilds are on the way, and the apexes of each region in the game carry with them a trend that reveals exactly the kind of monsters that are going to be in them. The trend may seem familiar at a glance, but it wasn't until I had fought all four that I noticed I was looking at things the wrong way. Let's start with Rey Dau. This monster does something that I absolutely love in Monster Hunter. It's something that's been a part of the series for a long time, but has gotten more extreme in recent years. So Rey Dau is a lightning wyvern that has rather telegraphed and straightforward attacks. It's one of the more honest fights in the series with nothing particularly tricky or underhanded. That doesn't mean everything is easy to dodge though. True to its lightning attribute, the monster is an agile threat both in the air and on the ground, and there's an extreme level of precision in this fight as a result of this. Check out this attack where the monster leaps into the air before dragging its wing through the sand. This is just drawing a straight line, and the hitbox reflects that as you can quickly sidestep it before jumping right back into the fight. This is the case with practically all of Rey Dau's attacks. They're all these super precise attacks that allow the player to dodge while still staying close. In the beta, I noted that nearly all of Rey Dau's attacks are quick and will generally only cover one axis at a time relative to the hunter, and that remains true in the full game, just without the teleporting. Check this out. If you're in front of Rey Dau, the hitbox of its attack will almost always be in a straight line in your direction. Its beams of lightning, its wing slides, and even the backflip. This means that you only ever have to dodge slightly perpendicular to the attack and you'll avoid it. That matters way more than you think, and it's all thanks to these things. You see, Rey Dau's lightning isn't just for show, it actually interacts with the environment, creating these glass crystals out of superheated sand called fulgurae. These grant extra range to Rey Dau's attacks. Those lines from earlier become just a bit wider, but more importantly, the fulgurite allows him to... oh no. Charge his railgun faster. But by virtue of being glass, they can also be broken. If you target this fulgurite and manage to break all of it, you'll get a knockdown, weaken the monster, and get some free hits in for your troubles. Much like how if you target the subscribe button, you'll get free videos. This all leads to that idea from the start, promoting aggression to weaken the monster's offensive abilities. Monsters as early as Kushala, Chameleos, and Teostra could be weakened by breaking certain parts, and more recently, monsters like Nergigante, Magnamalo, Malzeno, and now Rey Dau all ask the player to be as aggressive as possible to gain a major advantage in the hunt. So we can write that down as Rey Dau's key and hang on to it for later. But now we need to move on to something a bit less familiar, a similar mechanic used in a slightly different way, and some things we've never seen in the series before. An interesting part about apexes is the fact that they show up way more often during inclement weather. You can wait for this weather by just standing there, but that's pretty slow. Thankfully, you can head back to camp and rest, which is not working. Maybe it's too bright? It is harder to sleep when there's light everywhere. Oh, I got just the thing. The Manta Sleep Mask, this video's sponsor. Now, I'll be honest with you, I've never used a sleep mask before outside of those awful ones that you get on planes, and I've got a lot of hair IRL, so these rarely fit me anyway. But Manta was different. First, they've got this infinitely adjustable strap. Well, not literally infinite, you couldn't wrap it around Earth, but you get the idea. Thanks to this, miraculously, it actually fit me. And when it did, the difference was night and day, no pun intended. It's one thing to be totally lightproof, but what really stood out to me here was the lack of any cracks at all. I don't know what this material is, but it's somehow both firm and soft at the same time, allowing it to perfectly cover your eyes, sealing off any windows for light to get in. Crucially though, I really can't overstate how comfortable it is. It doesn't get hot thanks to the breathable materials it's made of, and it's even soft enough that you can sleep on your side, which is what I personally do. Manta's got this pro nap movement where they want people to be able to take naps wherever and whenever they need to, and honestly, with this thing you could probably take a nap in the middle of Times Square. You won't fully understand the difference between normal sleep and Manta until you try it yourself, so go to the Manta Sleep website and use my code for 10% off. Despite being included in the beta and being the apex of the first region, Rey Dau isn't actually the first apex we encounter. No, that title belongs to Uth Duna. This is a pretty interesting fight for three key reasons. Let's start with what this monster tries to teach us, assuming you're playing one of these weapons on screen at least. Take a look at this cutscene. Notice how Olivia tried to swing up at this thing and didn't immediately die? Keep that in mind. When we cut to the fight, we'll see Uth Duna do this exact same attack. He'll slowly rise up, pause for a moment, then come crashing down. You do not want to get hit by this attack, since it, like most incredibly slow and extremely telegraphed attacks in games, will do a lot of damage. However, if you have a weapon with an offset attack and basically no sense of self-preservation, you might think to do the same thing Olivia did. Swing at the 200-ton whale-sized creature that's about to flatten you in hopes that you can somehow hit it out of the way. In hindsight, this is a really bad idea, but It works, I guess. This is one of Uth Duna's favorite moves, and in using it, the monster teaches you how to consistently offset attacks. The next cool thing Uth Duna does is similar to Rey Dau. It's got this water veil that'll take reduced damage when you hit it. Much like Rey Dau, if you target these specific parts often enough, they'll eventually break and send the monster tumbling to the ground. This isn't all good though, and it's the third reason why this fight is so exciting. You see, breaking Uth Duna's armor has the opposite effect of Rey Dau. Instead of decreased offense and increased defense, Uth Duna's defense goes down, it gets really upset about that, and its offense goes up. Breaking the veil will pretty much always enrage this monster, meaning its attacks are faster, it hits harder, and is just generally more aggressive. Uth Duna starts the fight as this slow lumbering tank that uses large AoEs and telegraphed predictable attacks, but upon losing its veil, it remembers that it has the ability Swift Swim, it's currently raining, and you're in a lot of trouble. Crucially, however, we must not forget that breaking the veil does lead to a significant decrease in defense for the monster, so we'll write that down as Uth Duna's key, promoting aggression to weaken a monster's defensive abilities. Alright, at this point you're probably beginning to see the trend, but things start to change when we get to the most unique apex of the four. We've seen monsters like Uth Duna, Rey Dau, and Jin Dahaad before, but we've never seen anything quite like new Udra. The closest would probably be Nakarkos from Generations, and even then, the two are clearly visually distinct from each other. The most iconic part of new Udra is this octopus-like form with 6 arms instead of 8, and naturally, this can be a bit of a challenge. Let me explain why. This is Rathalos. He's about to attack, and these are your options to dodge it. Which direction would you choose? This isn't a trick question, and if you've played a 3D action game before, you probably have an idea of what he's about to do. I'll give you a second to think about it. If you guessed this direction, you'd be right. He's shooting a fireball, as dragons often do. It goes in a straight line, you dodge left or right. Easy. Okay, next, what on earth is this about to do? Anything? Here, I'll give you the arrows again. You can try to guess if you want, but even I'm not sure what this thing's about to... You get the idea. With 6 different limbs, all of which move totally independently of one another, it can be tough to tell where the next attack is going to come from. Mercifully, the developers actually thought of this and added these little blue indicators on the arm that's about to attack. That doesn't make it easy though, there are still 6 of them and their range is no joke. However, there is one more thing you can fall back on, something greatsword mains have been doing pretty much non-stop since the very moment they laid their hands on the weapon. You can just cut them off. This is a great strategy, but each tentacle has its own health bar, so you have to keep track of which one you want to target at any given moment if you want to cut them off efficiently. This lowers the monster's offense, but unlike Rey Dau, it focuses more on the range side of things. This fight is very different when the monster has all of its tentacles versus just a few or even none. To illustrate this, Rey Dau's range goes from this to this when you break its Fulgurite. When you cut an Udra's tentacle, it goes from this to this. Yet again, we're being rewarded for being aggressive by decreasing the monster's utility. It's here though that we start to notice something a bit strange with the trend that I mentioned earlier. Maybe you can already see it, but if not, let's go to the final apex where the game practically spells it out for you. The fourth and final apex, Jin Dahaad, might be my favorite monster in the game right now. I could make a standalone video on this hunt because it really does feel like the pinnacle of why we play these games in every possible way. It's the quintessential Monster Hunter experience. Right now though, I want to zoom in on its relationship with the other apexes and what it tells us about the future of the bosses that we'll see in the title updates. The big gimmick of Jin's fight are these ridges right here. They let off heat so that the monster itself can manipulate ice and the frigid air around it. During your first encounter with this monster, Olivia, your fellow hunter, quickly notices this and claims that we should target those ridges to break them. This turns out to be an excellent strategy. Much like the previous apexes, destroying these specific breakable parts will alter the hunt, and this time probably in the most significant way of all the apexes. You see, Jin Dahaad has this terrifying special move where it'll suddenly stop attacking, coil its body, form pillars of ice all around it, and begin drawing in freezing air to create this small isolated blizzard. But this is not the attack. No, it's just charging up, and once it's done, that's the attack. Like I said, quintessential Monster Hunter. Once this attack starts, the only way to avoid it is by hiding behind these chunks of ice. If you fail to do so, much like the Nova from Alatreon or Safi Jiva, there's no real escaping this. There is, however, a way to disable this Nova entirely. Remember those ridges from before? Well, if you break all of them, Jin Dahaad will lose the ability to use his strongest attack. So once again, it's a situation of promoting aggression, right? Well, it certainly does seem that way, but I think there's a bit more to it. It's not just about being aggressive, it's about focusing on specific parts. You get it? Like the like the main gimmick of the you weren't being asked to be aggressive against Rey Dau, Uth Duna, New Udra, and Jin Dahaad. You were being asked to target specific parts. Focus mode is obviously a huge part of Monster Hunter Wilds, and it's one of the biggest changes we've ever seen in the series. However, I think the developers want us to get used to using this mechanic sooner rather than later because we're probably gonna need it. So here's my theory. In this article, the developers said that they wanted to make more hunts like Alatreon and Fatalis that force the player to adapt to the hunt or fail, especially in the endgame. Title updates are often endgame content. Put 2 and 2 together and we get the possibility of a boss similar to Alatreon that requires us to target specific parts, perhaps even in a certain order this time, using focus mode to stop whatever end of the world attack it's planning on bringing to the table. And I think a lot of what I've gone over here is part of why people play Monster Hunter, but only part of it. For the rest, you'll have to check out this video.